Hi, I am Sean and I'm the creator of the Cold Feet podcast. I am passionate about helping human beings unlock their inner athlete through strength, mobility, and a holistic lifestyle. I created the Cold Feet podcast to help educate you on athletic performance, tactical development, holistic health, and so much more. So grab a hot cocoa and enjoy the episode.
We are live. Let's do it.
The funniest part is when you don't turn the back off, and then you all get electrocuted in the water. Super down for that.
Woo! Wonderful. So pay attention to where you are in the frame. Okay. Space, so that's if you want.
Deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. So, welcome to the Cold Feet podcast, and today I have on the show the one and only
Eytan Litt.
So why don't you go?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming along. And by the way, for those guys watching, Eytan is also filming this whole episode. It's all his tech, and I appreciate you so much for making this happen. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do, who you are, and what brings you here today.
Yeah, who am I? Just the cold gear thing and me filming the podcast, it really is nothing. We're gonna hopefully up the level of that in the future, bring in all kinds of cool stuff into it, but for now it's just a one camera setup. Anyway, who am I? So
I am a champion.
Yeah. Well, Eytan Litt. I was born in Israel. My family's from the States. The main things you'd want to know about me are that I love movies.
Who doesn't, bro?
Yeah. I love movies. I love making movies. I love watching them. I love writing them. That is indeed what I also do, filmmaking, specifically directing and producing. And yeah, other than that, I love martial arts. That's another thing I've done all throughout my life. Love sport, fitness. I love just living life, It sounds kind of kitschy, but hey, these are the things that I'm into, I suppose nutrition, all that other stuff, military, these are the things that interest me, essentially.
Do you enjoy nerdily analyzing movies as well? When you
do.
go out of the theater, do you sit down and
Yeah.
oh, but he did it that way, and the film did it that way?
I do. I actually think it's good to detach from that when you're actually watching the movie for the first time. I do, it could be difficult, but I try to really not think about, sort of how they made the movie and whatever. I'll maybe do that the second time I watch, and the truth is I really can't help it, even on the first time, just a little bit. But I try to really get into it as much as possible, because at the end of the day, I want to feel what the filmmaker wanted me to feel, making the movie. Because they constructed that whole scene and that whole moment, not so that other filmmakers can come and just criticize it and be like, oh, did they use a dolly there, freaking out about it. It's not that, they want you to feel, and at the end of the day, that's also the beauty of film. It's not, the technical side of it is something that interests me, but it doesn't interest everyone, and at the end of the day, the actual purpose of it is really the storytelling element, and so I try to embrace that as much as possible when I'm watching films, and then after the fact, I'll kind of take a more technical look at it. Yeah.
It personally fascinates me. I think I only started doing what you do, but not as a director, more as just a fanboy. I love Star Wars, I love Marvel, I love fantasy, and I don't go into the logistics that you do. I never ever thought, do they use a dolly or do they use this? Although I did notice in the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, our favorite Harry Potter, that when they were doing...
If it's not your favorite Harry Potter, you're a heretic.
You shouldn't be watching this. Yeah, it's just so well made, and it's by far favorite soundtracks. We'll get the soundtrack soon. Favorite directing, favorite movie.
Yeah.
But I noticed when they were flying on Hippogriff, when they were flying on Buckbeak the Hippogriff, that it was so obvious to me that they were sitting on this machine in a studio and going wee with a lot of green screen.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just immerse myself in the experience, and I don't focus on the what do they use, what dolly. I focus on, wow, they put that soundtrack in to make me feel what, what emotions come up, because watching movies are emotional, especially fantasy. What emotions come up, and when a director made this scene, what was he trying to portray? What is he trying to make me think? Sinister, bad, good, and that's how I analyze it. But it only enhances my film experience. It doesn't take away from it.
Yeah, well, that's, it's... first of all, I'm kind of surprised you mentioned that specific scene, because I feel like that's a scene that I personally got, like, I think I was actually... I mean, not surprised that they did it in a green screen, because obviously they did that, but it wasn't something like in a green, in sort of a warehouse, with a green screen machine, like you were mentioning. But those are really the moments. It was or it wasn't? It was. That's how
wasn't a box.
In terms of how it was made, right? But that was actually a scene that to me was so well done to the
magical
point that I did not, I didn't even think about it,
Right.
But yeah, I think. When you're like even what you mentioned about the music and sort of like what did the music make me feel, like that's something that also came after the fact, right? Like maybe even like during when you're watching
maybe the second time watching it,
right?
Yeah, the first time it's like the
first time you're just feeling it.
You're just nerdboying out. Yeah,
you're just feeling it. And that's the that's I try to like I was saying I try to embrace that as much as possible, because that's I don't know, man. I mean, sitting in a theater watching that scene and kind of having that. It's kind of hard to describe, but those like sort of feelings of joy, happiness, whatever. It's like it's all making you feel a certain way.
Yes.
And I think I've probably shed more tears in films than I have in real life. It's possible.
Yeah.
Because I mean we can go really deep into this, but I mean ultimately, these stories are kind of exposing us to sort of heightened reality, and we're oftentimes, even if it is not necessarily a fictional film or fantasy, we're still being oftentimes exposed to realities that we ourselves do not live, things that are interesting. Like at the end of the day, no one wants to hear the story about sort of average Joe, unless even when you do, like Hollywood or just film in general, it kind of glamorizes everything. And the reason for that is because even the normal story, like, or a story about someone, like if there are many people, I imagine, if you told them, like, here's a story about just like the old guy living down the street, you know, whatever, and there's nothing apparently interesting about it, but the truth is everyone has a story, right? And so you can really get into those details and strike at the specific parts of his story that are interesting, and that is that is a kind of heightened reality, because when you're watching it, it's kind of like overload. You're getting all that information about him in an hour and a half or 2 hours. You're not really living through the mundane of that person's life, and so even when it is a story that is kind of just average or supposedly average, it's not being presented to you in that way. You're getting all the exciting moments. You're getting this little snippet of the person's life that is interesting. And so, so for that reason, it could be so emotionally, like there can be this kind of override of emotions that you experience watching a film, because you really are experiencing so many different things in such a short period of time. But again, that's also assuming you really get into it, and really experience it that way. Not everyone does.
I totally agree with what you're saying. You have to be on that level. You have to be on that plane. You're getting a glimpse into this person's life, but you're getting almost like a highlight reel of their life. Yeah, and that's what movies are. Exactly. And if we think of what a highlight reel is, it's all the emotions and all the things that he's ever been through in that 1 hour and a half. Right. I like to I'm not a cinematographer. I do a lot of filming for like my social media and stuff, but when I like make, let's say, a 1 minute, 2 minute clip, like summary of my athletes, I add in music, I add in words to add to the drama of the moment. So like if someone's doing like a sled sprint, it's like, yeah, they're doing sled sprints. Then as he's running, you hear this like epic style soundtrack that's hopefully not copyrighted. It just adds to the like, I want to get in on this, and music really adds a lot. Before I go on the music tangent, I want to differentiate between a book and a movie. I found that I'm a uber nerd. I love Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, fantasy. I have all the Star Wars novels on my Kindle.
This is how it must be.
Yeah, every single Star Wars novel, all 3,000, we're friends with them. All 3,000 of them. And you look cold. You good? Chilling?
I'm good, man.
You can move around a bit if needed.
Yeah.
Anyways, when I read a book, so my imagination works very, very hard to play out the scenes of the book in my head. And you can read that same exact book and portray the scene in a completely different manner and imagine Darth Vader's lightsaber as looking completely different, Movies do the opposite. Movies kind of like the director has his vision. This is my understanding of it. You can totally disagree with me. And he wants you to envision it the way that he envisioned it. You don't really get so much independent thinking and creativity in watching the movie because the movie's just feeding you information. So you're absorbing all these emotions and details that are played out for you as opposed to a book, which you have to play out.
Right. Well, there's certainly... It's in books, whatever is left unsaid, whatever details are not necessarily expanded on, you can kind of fill those gaps with your imagination.
Right.
So but there's also details. It's also the fact that we perceive, the written word, we don't quite all perceive the same way, because we can all hear the same thing, but still perceive that kind of differently. Meaning, if a description of a person, for example, like he's tall and dark-skinned with rotten teeth, whatever. Like, let's say that's the description. Even with whatever details are given, we're all still kind of imagining something slightly different.
Right, totally, yeah.
So whereas like you said in film, it's all pretty in your face, and and it is true for sure, because there's just less room for that, in film. In film is kind of covering the whole spectrum of sensory, of sense, except for, of course, the feeling, and of course you're watching it on a screen. But I take that back. It's not exactly the full spectrum of sense, but it's doing a lot of things to. We were talking about sort of the emotional response to films. All the different elements of filmmaking are there to do that. Meaning, storytelling isn't just, whereas in a book it may be limited to just the written word and then the way you perceive that and then your imagination. In film, first of all, the imagery is so much clear. The imagery is clear, meaning you cannot. Although our eyes could lie to us, at the end of the day, the image that you are seeing, same example of the tall, dark, man with rotten teeth, like whoever's casted for that, and however the director wants him to look, and the costume designer and all the people who are working on that wants him to look, that's how he's gonna look, and you're just gonna have to take it.
Voldemort.
Voldemort, Voldemort.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
I didn't like. No, the casting was great, but sorry for cutting you off completely.
Man.
But who played it, Voldemort? Do you remember?
Ralph Fiennes.
So, I noticed something that I didn't like so much in the Goblet of Fire. I love this Harry Potter tangent. Yes. Title: Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. First of all, worst film because they should have split it into two.
It is.
Okay, so when he first got out of that cauldron, so he was very awkward. He was very I don't really know how to use my body. Now, if you think of it, if this guy just spent 4 to 10 years out of a human body, it makes sense that he was awkward and didn't know how to use his body. But in film 5, he still did that. And film 6, he still did that. This Voldemort is this villain, and he's supposed to inspire fear in me. So when you see that small flashback in the first movie where he kills Harry's parents, wow, that was scary AF. I'm terrified. When they were in Hogwarts in the 7th movie, and he's like, Harry, come to me, leave everyone alone. That was villainous and scary. But then you see him, he's like, yeah. Remember 17? He's like, Harry Potter's dead, ha ha ha. And I'm like, this guy isn't scary. He's got to get a nose, first of all. And I don't know whose idea was that. But second of all, he was so awkward. And I totally off-tangented, but based on what you were saying, how they're making us perceive things. Why did they choose, or was it the actor, was it the director that chose that awkward, bumbly Voldemort that kind of lost the fear element?
Well, it's both. Although I'm actually, if I recall, I did see. I believe it is actually the actor in that case, Ralph Fiennes, who kind of
creative liberty.
Look, there's, you really can't attribute it. First of all, I can't say I know exactly what the decision-making process was because I wasn't there.
Right.
And there are things that you don't necessarily see in the behind the scenes, but. The people involved in how a scene is going to look and the way the actor is acting and all that stuff. I mean, obviously there's, of course, the actor who's making his decisions, but at the end of the day, he's also coming to the director.
Yeah.
And the director is operating off a script. So the writer is really the first one who had a say, who put forth, the script with the dialogue, and maybe he wrote it into the script.
Can I ask a question about that? But when they're basing a movie off when they're basing a movie off a book or a series instead of a script, does that change things?
They rewrite. Well, it's a screenplay. They don't. So they bring. They can't go, page for page from a book.
Correct, and
right?
they didn't in any movie. Yeah.
So what they need to do is adapt it to film, and so they bring in a screenwriter who's going to take the book.
Is he going to read the books like 100 times?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the screenwriter on the Harry Potter films also had a very close relationship with J.K. Rowling. Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, he needs to decide what scenes are important, what scenes aren't important. If there's a scene that I need to make shorter, or if there's a scene that I need to convey in a different way because the way it's conveyed in the book won't work for the film. For example, you can have a scene that is in the book merely description of events that are taking place, and for the film they could decide, it doesn't make sense for us to just have what are we going to do, have a just this montage, this long montage of all these things that are happening. We can't do that. So they may decide to take a specific scene from within the montage, say where you see two characters speaking, and they decide to write in the rest of the details from all the other pages of the book and all the different places that the audience is being brought to in the pages of the book. They'll just go through all of that in the conversation that these two characters are having in that scene. There's different ways that can happen. But at the end of the day, they need to change a lot of things, and they need to add dialogue and take away. Sometimes they do take dialogue directly from the book, and
straight from the book.
Straight from the book if it's
From the way you described it reminds me a lot of being a performance coach, because there's no right or wrong way. Obviously, there's many things like everyone should strength train, athletes should power train, sports specific movements, but every coach could decide how he wants to program, and it could be an amazing program. He can squat, he can deadlift, he can sled, he can not sled, he can sprint, he can run uphill. So it's kind of the same with a director, from what I'm understanding. A director can take the creative liberty and make a movie, and it'll be amazing. Then another director can take the same movie and make it from a book, completely different movie.
Absolutely,
I think what Steven Spielberg wanted to do with a cartoon Harry Potter. Are you familiar with this?
I have not, actually.
I was reading about it. So he was offered the film, and I don't know if cartoon's the right term, but not live people, an animated.
He wanted to. I imagine. I mean, I haven't
TV
heard of this, but I imagine that it was
series.
probably going to be what was it? What was that film that he did with the Express, the Orient Express?
Yeah,
is that what it was?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Or anyway, there was, he did Tintin, right? The Adventures of Tintin,
yes.
And that was sort of this experiment with sort of borderline, very real looking computer animation. But also kind of not, and that's people complained with those films that they were have you ever heard of the Uncanny Valley? Which is when something looks if you look at a computer generated face and it looks almost real, but just not quite. That's Uncanny Valley. It's this phenomenon that you experience or we as humans experience when we look at a human face.
Yes.
That everything seems to be right about it, but there's just something a little off.
Secretly an alien.
We're unsettled by that.
Interesting.
And so that was kind of one of the big complaints with that. I was not aware that they wanted to do Harry Potter this way.
I would love the same way that they made Game of Thrones TV show, even though there's pros and cons to that. They're making Lord of the Rings TV show, and it's so funny because my point of view is if something's good, don't try to fix it. Lord of the Rings is, in my opinion, probably the most beautiful piece of art that ever hit the cinematography world. I'm not a cinematographer, I'm not a director, I'm just a nerd boy. And even if you don't like Lord of the Rings, I opened Lord of the Rings, and Sarah, who's notoriously anti-fantasy, although she did get through 3 books of Harry Potter already. So, Sarah's my wife, by the way. And so, I'm like, Sarah, let's watch a great movie. She's like, it's not going to be about, dwarves and elves and all that fantasy stuff. I'm like, no, it's fine. And I put it on, and it's like, the dwarves and the elves created the 11 rings. And she's like, I'm like, damn it, it's not, whatever. Yeah. Anyways, Lord of the Rings is, the best thing that was ever created. And I'm curious why Amazon, or whoever owns it now, made that choice of make it into a TV show. But with that being said, if they would make Harry Potter a TV show, I think everyone in the world would stop everything and watch it. Because it's a different director, it's a different piece of art, but it just connects to so much in our soul. Wow.
Well, just to answer why would Amazon do that? Well, first of all, the Amazon show isn't going to be a recreation of Lord of the Rings. It's going to be, it's going to be following a different age. I believe it's maybe the second age.
It's not going to be that story. It's not going to be.
It's essentially following different stories that have taken place in Middle Earth.
From his other books.
The whole
interesting, fascinating.
Yeah, so it's gonna be following, I believe, the second age of Middle Earth.
Down.
And so it's not really recreating Lord of the Rings. It's Lord of the Rings is a separate story in and of itself, but it's going back to Middle Earth. Why are they doing it? I mean, hey, studios like making money.
Hell yeah.
And this is
people are gonna watch
anyone who gets the rights to Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter is going to milk it.
Yeah.
But they obviously do care about it, being worthwhile, since they're investing, like $2 billion into it. It's actually the most expensive first season of a show ever.
Wow. More than Game of Thrones.
More than Game of Thrones,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about how TV shows make money. So I'm going to be the ignorant Joe Rogan here and ask, I'm going to be the asker and just understand. Movies, let's say Disney, or let's be more specific, Star Wars. So they make a shitload of money from the box office, right? They make a lot of money from merchant. I'm sure they make another $1 billion from merchandise and toys and Legos and art and posters and stuff. And that kind of makes sense to me. That's their main income, yes?
There's those are for sure parts of
main income. Yeah. TV shows, how are they making their money besides ads?
Well, TV shows are typically on streaming services, and the streaming services are making money by way of subscription, and the streaming services are paying
by the rights, like a royalty style, or
there's a contract between the streaming service and nowadays oftentimes the streaming service themselves are producing the show.
Yeah.
So in that case, they're just they're making money from their subscriber base,
right?
And the better quality content they put out,
right?
The bigger their base becomes. So that's essentially that. There are tons of ways that these people make money that could be there's just so many different things.
The non-streaming element, let's say I know Netflix has been the world dominator for the past while, but Disney Plus is out, HBO Plus is out, whatever hell, ESPN. There's so many stuff. Disney's slowly buying them all up. Disney owns the world.
Yes.
Well, it does because it owns Star Wars and Darth Vader. But back in the day when people would actually watch TV shows on their TV and it would come out once a week, and I remember doing that for Game of Thrones. I was in the army then, and the last season came out, and the Mefaker Echida is all right, everyone stop. We're all going to the club, the Moadon Echida, and we all just watch Game of Thrones together. We waited for it to air on TV. So when a TV show airs on TV, where's the money? I'm not talking about let's say the streaming service didn't buy it.
Right. Before streaming services, you did have broadcasting companies. And
so the broadcasting companies buy the rights because they have a gajillion viewers, because it's because of ads. Ads make their income.
Well, it's not just ads. Well, first of all, it's the same concept. Broadcasting companies would have subscribers. Same. I remember Yes, Hot, whatever.
Right,
they have subscribers. People have to pay for that service.
Fascinating.
It wasn't just free cable.
Of course,
people were paying for cable.
Right.
So there's that. And these companies would cut deals with the broadcasting companies who are playing their stuff. It's similar to a theater,
right?
Essentially, when a studio makes a film, they have to. There's usually a distribution company involved,
right?
The distribution company is going to be basically writing up all these contracts with all Well, really, they're going to be figuring out how to distribute the film or the TV show or whatever it is.
Yes.
How do they make the most money? How do they get the most viewership? Whatever, all these different things. And so you will have, they'll go to the theaters and they'll have a contract with the theater.
Right.
The theater will show the film for this much time, this many screenings, whatever it is. And they'll have a contract with the streaming service that after their theater run, it's going to be brought onto their platform for this much time. It used to be DVDs and VCR tapes used to be.
I miss that era.
Used to be the way that they'd make money essentially after theatrical release.
It's fascinating how it just changed.
Yeah.
It just went from like Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore and DVDs don't exist. I still have DVDs.
I
don't have a way to play them.
I play them on my laptop.
I don't have a thingy on my laptop.
I love DVDs because DVDs. First of all, so speaking of my story of getting into filmmaking basically begins with that. It begins with the DVDs, and the reason for that is because DVDs would typically come in not necessarily a 2 CD setup, but they would have you'd have the film, and then you'd have the behind the scenes of the film.
That was my favorite part, deleted scenes.
Yeah,
oh my
dude,
God.
that was the best. And so, seeing the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, which by the way I've watched.
You mean extended version or like behind the scenes stuff?
Oh no, the behind the scenes stuff.
Can we marathon Lord of the Rings tonight?
Bro, not tonight.
I'm not even kidding.
But we should. Yeah. But yeah, I actually think we should, and me and my girlfriend were actually thinking of doing that.
I'm in. Can I third wheel? I'll bring Charlie.
Okay.
Well, 4 wheels. And Trevor.
Yeah. The behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean, Harry Potter, all these films had extensive, behind the scenes stuff. They really captured tons and tons of stuff that they did behind the scenes, from costume design to production design.
There's characters who didn't make it to the final cut that you never met on film.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the stuff, the deleted scene stuff. But you have all the technical stuff as well, and that to me was the most interesting thing as a kid. I've watched the behind the scenes probably more times than I watched the film itself. I would just every night I just we threw away a TV. And I just took the TV and put it in my room.
Nice.
And stuck the set up the DVD player.
Nice.
And every night I would watch it to sleep. I'd watch the behind the scenes. Wow. It kind of it was soothing. But beyond that, it was also very inspiring and very cool. I mean, these people are freaking living the dream. They're building these magnificent sets. Building a production designer is being given. These pretty, these instructions, this and this source material that this is supposed to be Hogwarts, this is supposed to be the cave. What are they? What do they call it? Ile de Muerta,
from
whatever it was.
Yeah.
No, from Pirates. The cave that from which they got the curse, cursed coins and all that.
Yeah.
So and they have to. And the production designer's getting this stuff, all these instructions. He has to build the floor plan and they have all these architects and all these people involved, all these craftsmen who are really the top of their game. These are the best craftsmen coming together to make this stuff, just to think it up, imagine it, and make it happen. So, not to mention all the woodworkers and metalworkers and all the people that they have to bring together to actually make it happen, practically. So, anyway, that was some of the most incredible stuff, and it's kind of a shame, that we lost that. After the age of DVDs, everyone just kind of downloads the movie,
right,
and or watches it on a streaming service, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that has kind of impacted the film industry negatively, but and also the viewership experience, in my opinion, but I mean, we have a whole bunch of DVDs stacked up at home, and whenever I feel like it, I just put it in my computer.
So you just had what I would call a giant nerdgasm.
Oh yeah.
You just went full on nerd boy, and I love it. I totally connect what you were saying. I actually, my older sister, who also we owned all the Harry Potter games, we owned all the Harry Potter DVDs, we owned all the books.
Dude.
Yeah, the games are amazing,
the
bro.
Games, man.
So,
that stuff.
If I remember correctly, could be I'm remembering wrong, but the DVDs that I had an option that you were able to add in the deleted scenes within the. I must be tripping, but I was somehow able to watch the film with the deleted scenes as part of the film.
Oh yeah.
So, and that's what I remember. And just this past month, I just went through all the Harry Potters again because why the hell not? And I was crying. When Harry got started at the Gryffindor, I was tearing up. When Harry killed Voldemort, I was tearing up. When show kissed him for the first time, I was tearing up. Like, this is like emotional shit. Probably the music made it happen, but I was like, wait a minute, where's that scene? Like, there's scenes missing, and then I realized when I on Google, like, where's that scene? They're like, oh, that scene was deleted. So all these things that I like nerdboyed on and grew up with were gone.
Yeah.
I want to tangent. I want to say so much about what you were saying, but I call it creative energy. I think that every human being on this planet has a certain has a certain meter of creative energy that he wants to channel and give to the world. I channel it in helping people get stronger and more athletic. You channel it in film production. Sarah channels it in her work and, you know, in creating and crocheting and horses and whatever it is. But many people don't know how to tap into that creative energy. And you see, you're passionate about what this. Like, you're getting like, when I speak about fitness, I'm the same exact way.
Yeah.
And when I speak about something I strongly believe in, I'm also the same way. So, like, people out there listening, tap into your creative energy. Find something you love doing and do it. You can try to monetize it. You can not monetize it. You can go the nonprofit. Whatever you want to do, tap into what makes you feel alive. Are you?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm freezing my ass
Hell
off.
yeah.
But you know what? I love it.
It's nice.
And I love what you're saying, too.
Tap into what makes you feel alive and makes you feel like Eytan's feeling right now, and makes me feel when I like build a new I just launched my new online program, and you just like, I'm not talking about the cold, we'll get to the cold soon, and just tap into that and like create something. And when you see that film that you made, you look at it like a proud grandpa, like, I made this.
Yeah.
It's almost like a kid, but not as fun.
Well, I'll tell you, that's it's a really, I mean, I know a lot of artists doing different things, music, you know, all the other forms of art. And at the end of the day, I mean, everyone knows that these are not the most, it's not easy to monetize this stuff. Right. It just isn't. And, you know, no one, I mean, most people are not living under any, you know, delusions about that. Mm-hmm. You know, like, they're pretty
monetize like film the film
monetizing
industry.
Art, you know, as a, you know, whether it be filmmaking, whether it be music, whether it be painting, whatever it is you do, photography, you know, it's all, I mean, you know, some are easier than others. Correct. For example, photography is easier than music to monetize. You know, whatever, be a wedding photographer, you're all good. Right. But
and you have to find clients and stuff. Right. But there's a very high demand for it.
Right. But really, but that's isn't really the art. That's the craft in a way. And you know, the art being an element of that being your own self-expression and sort of putting out the product that you want to put out, not necessarily, although it does need to be received by an audience. You know, the audience wants to see what you want to put out, kind of thing. And essentially, the folks who are successful in it are people whose product gains an audience. You know, the thing that they want to put out. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, ask anyone who, in my opinion, anyone who's worth anything in this in these fields. Yeah. Will not say, you know, if I can't be monetarily successful in this, then it's over, you know? Right. Like, they're doing it because they want to do it. Yeah. And, you know, they work other jobs, they find other ways to make a living, to kind of, you know, if you can monetize it and be successful enough in it that you can only work in that, fantastic. That is going. That's going pro.
That's the goal.
That is the goal.
Yes.
That absolutely. I'm not saying you should not have that goal. I'm simply saying that, you know, in the time that you are not there, you know, before you get there. A good example of this is Peter Jackson, who sat on the rights to Lord of the Rings for like 7 years before he made it. During that time, he invested a shit ton in it. Right. You know, he invested a lot in it. He invested money, time, and, you know, hiring different writers, rewriting, you know, all these rewrites that he had to do to the script, because he'd go to all these studios and they'd tell him to, you know, to F off. Right. Like,
orcs?
You know, no, more like, yeah, you know, we should make it in one movie, and you have to, like, change the script in all these different ways, and, you know, and
he believed in himself.
Whatever, but he did it because he wanted to see the movie. Right. Like, he wanted to put out a good product, a product that he would be proud of, you know? So at the end of the day, I think the people who really end up putting out a quality product are the people who are doing it, like, for that passion, you know, from a place of just, like, this is what I want, and you know what, and even if no one does see it, right, you know, which, I mean, that would be unfortunate. You do want people to see it, but even if no one were to see it, you know, it would it's like it's not a question of what if no one sees it. It's what if I don't ever chase this? You know, what if I don't?
What
make
if it's
this?
not created?
Yeah.
What
What
if
if
you
it's not
never
created?
make it?
Exactly. What if I never make it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so yeah, you know, I mean, I just agree with what you were saying fully. I think, you know, I mean, that's how I live. I mean, I feel like that's how I try to live. I think life's too short to kind of
Get stuck on the hamster wheel.
yeah, exactly. To just kind of, I mean, yeah, you know, there's priorities. You do need to be able to prioritize different things at different times. Be flexible. You know, you don't necessarily want to end up sleeping on a futon. You know,
Right.
but you know, like on I don't know, on the floor in your friend's apartment, whatever. But
people have done that to be successful.
people have done that. You know, like I'm not judging.
Right.
I'm just saying, you know, there's certainly, you know, room for flexibility, but I think that at the end of the day, if you're kind of selling your soul, you know, to do something that's just going to make you money but nothing else,
Right.
it's kind of yeah.
I had that dilemma when I got released from the army, and you know, both Eytan and I are former lone soldiers, or both were in elite units. And when you finish the army,
Correction, I was not a lone soldier.
oh, I apologize, didn't know that. Both of us
Yes.
were soldiers in the
Yes.
IDF. And when you finish the army, it can be a very, very hard structure, especially because the army is so regimented and so structured, in through your nose and out through your mouth. The army is so regimented and structured that, as an entrepreneur like me, I'm this like ADHD fiery Leo who just wants to like burn the world or create stuff, or both of them together. And I have so many ideas that I want to make a reality. And it's like, how do I do it? The army's like, you have to be here at 8 o'clock. You have to leave at 11 o'clock. There's no, they take all the creative thinking out for you. So when I finished the army, everyone's like, nah, just work in security. You're in an elite unit. You got paid your $10 an hour, which is great for Israel, and everything's great. And I'm like, no, because if I work in security now, I'm gonna be spending 2 to 5 years of my life. Maybe I'll be paying rent and making money, but I'll be taking my creative energy and applying it to the defense ministry, or applying it to guard the U.S. Embassy. And I love you, U.S. Embassy, but no, I want to work for myself. So like a year, I didn't make a penny. I was just like building up something of substance, and I went from training people in the park to open a small studio in Rechavia, and now I opened here, and now I work with a national team, and I have a podcast that we're in right now. I have a book, I have online programs. Like, I believed in myself enough to create it. And touching on the point where you said, the people who make it, it's not because they got lucky. It's because and it's not also because they worked their ass off. It's in addition to them working their ass off. It's because they had this fiery, burning passion to create something, and they made it happen. And I think the best example is Facebook. Like, maybe he thought he's going to be a quadrillionaire one day and go to the moon, or maybe that's the other guy. But he created it to connect like his roommates in college. Now, did he have a greater vision? We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sure he had a greater vision, but he was connecting people. All these like passionate people who created something great, they usually started off one person who had a vision, Peter Jackson, who wanted to create something great because he believed in it. And when you believe in something so much, no one can take it away from you. And I wanted to speak about entrepreneurship anyways, and we did by accident. But like, we're both entrepreneurs. Eytan here is directing this podcast. He does way more than podcasts. He directs films, and he's going to be Eytan Spielberg one day. Really? Or Eytan Nolan. That's
okay.
What's up.
That's
better. Eytan Nolan, okay? And like, he has this vision. He has the confidence to believe in it. You, I don't know why I'm saying he. You have the confidence to believe in yourself, and I can see by your personality type, it will happen. It may happen next year, it may happen in 10 years, but you'll get your breakthrough. Like, my breakthrough was, obviously opening a facility was no small feat, but like, I got a contract with a national team of Israel. In America, to get to like the NFL, like national level, you have to intern for like 10 years with like college level, the high school, one day intern NFL, one day, and like boom, head strength and conditioning coach. And like, it wasn't luck, it was just I believed in my services and skills so much that it just happened. Can we still speak about music and soundtracks? How
Oh yeah, we totally can. And before we do, I just want to say that I appreciate that a lot. You know,
appreciate what?
What you do.
Eytan Spielberg.
And, well, I appreciate what you do. And I think anyone taking the leap and, you know, sort of entering
the unknown.
The unknown, yeah, the uncertain. You know, it's something that is yeah.
It's but before we like go on, it's sad how many people's dreams get swallowed up by other people's dreams. So like someone has a dream and a reality, and then he's like, whatever, I don't want to make my own sourdough artisan bread. There's a guy doing it already, let's go work for him. That means that unique recipe of sourdough bread never existed. And I don't want to bring like religion really into it, so let's just keep it like neutral. But if someone goes up to heaven or afterlife or whatever the hell you believe in, after we finish on our 100 years here, you're gonna look back at your creations and you're gonna be like, did I do it or did I not? Did I write that book? Right? So like in the Jewish side of things, that's the customary siren as the Sabbath enters here. So we're gonna take out 7 seconds
I don't
while
know if you can hear it, but
whatever.
yeah.
So speaking of Judaism, on the Jewish side of things, like when you go up to heaven, I'm speaking about like the Jewish interpretation, man. Like God's like, all right, man, what do you do in this life? And God is gonna show you everything that you could have done. It could be books you did. It could be books you could have written. It could be, communities you could have impacted. And straying away from religion, I think Eric Thomas, a motivational speaker, he'd be like, when you go up, they're gonna be like, where are those books you could have written? Where are the movies you could have directed? Where are the gyms you could have opened? Where are the online programs that you could have made? And if you don't follow your dreams, you're gonna come to 50 and you're gonna come to 70 and you're gonna be like, wow, I really shouldn't have smoked weed from 20 to 40. Music.
I'll just say two things about that. One is you don't need to, you don't need to wait for heaven for that.
Right.
I believe, whatever. No one knows really what goes on in the afterlife.
Correct.
You can believe whatever you
I believe
want to believe.
The Egyptian afterlife. I like that.
But at the end of the day, well, that's interesting. But
no, because
I don't know anything about that.
I've been reading a lot of Percy Jackson. So
I see.
Not Percy Jackson. Rick Riordan. I'm reading the Egyptian mythology ones. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Percy Jackson's like Greek mythology.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Anyway, what I would say about that is, whether you believe in afterlife or not, I believe that there is a form of heaven and hell on earth. If anyone who listens to Jordan Peterson, very wise man.
Yeah.
But he'll kind of talk about that a little bit. You reap the benefits or feel the consequences, the negative consequences of what you do, and also what you don't do. You don't need to wait till you die.
Yeah.
People live in desperation.
People live in death.
People live in this state in which they know they are just not doing what they want to do, and
they're miserable.
Doing what they, and people also live in a state of kind of fulfilling their goals and dreams and whatever, and like you don't need to wait until you get up to heaven for someone to tell you could have done this, because you know what you could do.
Right.
Like you had thought of it at some point. You had said like, oh, maybe I can do that thing, but then you just swept it under the rug and kind of continued on. Like having an ambitious attitude and being ambitious enough to really just take on the thing that you just thought about, whatever idea you had, as big as it may be, that's something that will serve you. And because even if you fall flat on your face, it's still a formative experience. Like chasing that stuff is, and you get better at it as you go along. So yeah, I
look at it, I guess we can finish off on this part in this subject. If you're not taking steps to fulfill your own dream, you're probably fulfilling someone else's dream. So hell yeah for him, but like take those steps. Even if you're 50, 60, really like how you said it, like you even don't wait till heaven, don't wait till you die. Yeah. Like look back, and there's 50-year-olds who like started their company, and there's 70-year-olds who started their company at 70, and follow your dreams and passions, and you may not be able to monetize it right away, but like if you believe in it enough,
you may not be able to monetize it at all.
It will happen.
That's the thing, it's another thing. You're not being like, I think what we're talking about is not necessarily taking something you're passionate about and monetizing it, because maybe that's not what you want to do.
Right.
It's just don't let your life be all about money.
Correct.
Or any of those other things, like or success, as kind of what other people define it as.
It's so subjective.
The point of it simply is you may want to write that book or make that film or write the song, produce the song, whatever it is you want to do. I'm kind of using all these artsy examples, but whatever it could be.
You're an artist,
opening a strength and conditioning place, whatever it is. like, you could be involved in that stuff and not necessarily be monetizing it.
Correct.
I love music. I don't monetize music. I never intend to. You know, I play guitar at home.
Nice.
I do it very privately. It's fun. I love it. It's something I enjoy.
Soulful.
But you, like, pursue those things because it's in and of itself just learning guitar or learning. I know one guy who's learned how to do 3D modeling with basically no intention of ever working it or anything like that. He just wanted to learn how to do it, and he just fucking did it. And that's, to me, that's respectable, you know, like, just, you know, taking that time to learn how to do something that gives you joy, that you want to do. You know, that's, yeah. But, you know, I feel like we have maybe pounded sand a little bit on the topic, and you keep trying to want to go to music. So let's do that now.
Go for it.
You wanted to talk about soundtracks.
I wanted to speak about soundtracks. For me, music, specifically soundtracks, are completely spiritual. So, like, I pray, not in the conventional way. I sit down on the floor, I close my eyes, and I meditate, and I put on Hans Zimmer or John Williams, and I just absorb the message that this soundtrack guy, composer, is trying to give to me. And, like, I can see, like, in Judaism, there's a concept of, like, singing nigunim, singing melodies at the Shabbat table. I'll sing soundtracks. Like, they're so soulful for me, and I know that not everyone has that connection to music, but I do. And, like, Frank Sinatra, Andre Bocelli, even Elvis, or even Michael Bublé, anyone that can add soul to music, I love it. Whether Jewish or not Jewish doesn't matter to me. And I wanted to hear, like, you have that connection with music as well?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. I think most people really do in some way. They just, you know, well, music has just changed a lot, and the music that you hear in films oftentimes can be, well, first of all, it's usually orchestral, but even if it isn't, because sometimes it's like more sort of synthesizer,
Right.
like, you know, and sometimes whatever. There's different kinds of soundtrack, but they're definitely meant to convey a certain, or to. They're definitely meant to cause you to feel a certain way. But specifically the orchestral stuff, I feel like have a very tribal element to them. You know, the drums, like the loud drums, you know, the banking on the drums, oftentimes there is a kind of a tribal feeling to it, and I think that really, I think that is something that, although many people nowadays may not be so accustomed to, because some people really, their only exposure to music is, you know, I don't know,
Skrillex, Eminem,
Charlie Puth, whatever. Not that any of those are bad.
Correct.
But they're kind of missing out on just the music that just makes you kind of want to, like,
soar on a dragon and conquer the world.
Yeah.
2 steps from hell, baby.
Yeah. But I would say the music that just makes you that really invokes a certain emotion, and not, you know, that doesn't necessarily have lyrics or anything like that, but, you know, kind of like ancient, like when you listen to, like, sort of ancient music, ancient music that is drums, a flute, and
ancient melodies,
like, you know, a hurdy-gurdy, you know, all these, like, ancient instruments. And if you don't know what hurdy-gurdy is, you should look it up. You know, I feel like it really, you kind of, it makes you feel like, how would I put this? It
elevates you to a different realm.
No, I don't know if I'd say that. That's
my interpretation.
Yeah, okay, you can take that.
Yeah.
But I'll just say that it for me, it really spikes my imagination.
Yeah.
And I can really enter a completely different zone when I'm listening to that stuff. So, you know, you actually said something really cool to me the other day. You were saying that you would take the soundtracks of these films and you would listen to them with your wife.
Yeah.
And just be like, what do you think of? Like,
what is it invoking?
Yeah. What do you imagine? What do you think of when you hear this? And that's a cool exercise because, you know, once separated from all the other elements of film, the visual element, and, you know, the rest of the sound that's in the film, and, you know, and the acting and all this other stuff that's happening, you can really sort of take that music and let it let it affect you how it will, you know, and let it kind of guide your imagination. And to me, that's something like, I mean, that's super, super cool. And I mean, I think it's cool to do that with all music, really.
Right.
But the difference between music, say like Eminem, you know, like
right.
rap music,
it's
or
great,
whatever.
but it's not as soulful as a soundtrack.
Well, it's just distracting with other things that are. It's just a different art form. I mean, when I'm listening to the words of an Eminem song or whatever, and that, like, it's cool, and it makes
poetry.
me move, and it's poetry, and it's great. But it doesn't transport me like to another place. Mic check.
Yeah, so for me, first of all, let's say like that example you gave where Sarah and I do that meditation together. She didn't see the scene of that soundtrack, so like I will associate da da dun dun da da dun dun da da dun with like pirate romp, raunchy adventure. She doesn't know that. I mean, she figured it out because she's smart, but she gets to like experience the soundtrack solely how the composer wanted it. You take this and perceive whatever you want. So like personal favorites, Time from Inception by Hans Zimmer. The Buckbeak's Flight one, I already forgot it, from Prisoner of Azkaban when he's soaring across the water. I can't think of it right now. But also my sister, like, it invokes so much emotion inside me, and I think I've said this already. I think that emotion is spiritual, and I'll tell you why. Once again, I'm not someone who is religious by the books, but I'm a very, very spiritual person. And if you look at my practice, you'd be like, hey, this guy's an Orthodox Jew. But I don't like saying that because I like worshiping God and my higher power in like my way, my rules kind of way. But what I did notice is that my soul connects to music. And when I looked into it, I might have mentioned this to you. So regardless of whether you believe or not in God, that's not the point. The point is that assuming that you believe in some sort of higher power, so our souls get to hang out with him. Whether it's Jesus, Allah, God, Buddha, doesn't matter. And when our souls hang out in him, so it's brought down in like prayer and psalms in the Bible lots of times that the angels sing this like heavenly chorus to God, and the soul is exposed to that constantly. And when your soul is sent down to this world, when it hears music, it opens up to receive. It opens up to receive this like spiritual connection it did up in heaven. And if it's soulful music, like soundtracks or something, you know, whatever, Elvis, something that like connects your soul, it's like, oh, this is like back home, you know, back where I'm from. Whereas if you put on like Eminem, and no disrespect to Eminem, he's a poet, it's a little bit hard for my soul to like connect to that stuff because it's very aggressive. And like when I do these meditations, I don't like words that much. I like Andre Bocelli, he's my boy, but I'll work out to that. But meditation, I just want like a calming, soulful thing that I could kind of add words if I want and interpret it in my own way. That's music for me. It's just so powerful.
That's beautiful, and I mean the beautiful thing is it also can be different things for different people.
Yes, very much.
And but I do think that there is, you know, again, something a little more tribal about the kind of music that you'll typically hear in films. The orchestral music, it is a little more to the roots of kind of how humans experience music. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like if you listen to ancient music, it's
could you clarify what you mean by ancient music?
Well, just music. Well, ancient,
like harps and
well, yeah, I mean, could be. I mean, but it's what I mean by ancient music is simply music that, you know, it could be Celtic. It could be,
I love
it could be like Native American. It could be like, you know, but ancient civilizations and their music, and the sorts of things that humans have banded together to listen to around the fire, you know, during a religious ceremony, whatever it may be.
Ceremonial music.
So it's definitely orchestral music, you know, that you hear in films is certainly much closer to that than something like, you know, Justin Bieber.
Good example, yeah. Perfect.
But and I think it does. It has an impact. Like when you hear that stuff, it really does. You know, I mean, and I'm not a. You should have my brother on if you really want to talk about musical theory and how different.
What's Christopher Nolan's brother's name? Jonathan Nolan. So I'll invite Eytan. What's Eytan's brother's name?
Noam Nolan. Yeah, shout out.
Noam Nolan. I really liked, you know, Duel of the Fates from The Phantom Menace. Da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
So I liked the singers. I liked the choir, and it's kind of managed to instill this fear in me. Like, this guy is, besides the fact that he died, he came back alive in the TV show. Spoiler alert. But Like it instilled whatever.
Like they give the spoiler after you.
Exactly.
Said it.
Well, hopefully people watched it. Whatever creative ability the director and the what's the music producer called? Composer.
John Williams.
No, I'm saying it's called the music composer.
Oh,
like
yeah,
if you're called a
composer.
cinematographer, so he's a music composer. Yeah. So whatever like vision the composer had, it managed to give me that like this aura of darkness and depth, and it's so cool. Just like connecting the dots and thinking about like I'm obsessed with this stuff. I work out to it, I listen to it, I meditate to it. How you feeling?
I'm cold, but I feel good.
We've been in the cold for a long time, over an hour. I don't know.
Oh, has it been over an hour?
I don't know, man. It's almost sundown, man. Like we've been here for a while. And I want to just right before this podcast started, Eytan was asking me. Our gym is located right next to the ice tub, so he's like, "Yeah, I'll just quickly get my workout in, then I'll go in the ice tub." And I said, "Actually, that's not the best idea." I just want to just jump in on that. Is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
Just because cold exposure and recovery are a very, very iffy gray area, so I'm just going to address that. First off, there's 5 main elements why people tend to incorporate cold exposure in their life. The first one is immunity. Now, everything has to be science-based. So, like, Wim Hof comes along and says, like, I can fight AIDS with this. No, really, it's a true study. Okay, cool, but, like, prove it, right? If I'm going to do something regularly, I want to see either science backing or it affecting my daily life for the good. It affects my daily life for the good, that's no question. But for people who want to get in on it, they want to know the science behind it. So, immunity. They did a study on it, and it has been shown to improve certain immune cells count. But just because it improves the immune cells count, it doesn't mean that it actually has a positive effect on your immune system. So, like, cold exposure as part of, like, eating well and exercising, doing everything, definitely good for you, do it, but it may or may not increase your immunity. I've just noticed common sense. If I'm more comfortable in the cold, which I am, like I'm totally chill right now, and pun intended, because right now it's at like probably 15 to 20 degrees. Normally it's at 3 degrees for me, but we're here for a while. I don't want us to get hypothermia. If I can be more comfortable in the cold, then I'm just gonna be easier in the winter. Like don't need science to tell me that. That's the immune effect. Mood boosting. This is the only one that like there's actual science researching it. I forgot the name of the chemical already. Neuroperfin. Whatever it is, there's you'll have to ask the Huberman guy to tell us that chemical. There's a chemical in your brain that when you go in cold exposed for anywhere between like 5-10 minutes, it increases by 5 times the amount. So everyone agrees on this, scientists, that cold exposure helps increase your mood by 1,000,000 and increases your mental focus. So something I've done, like when I'm working on my online programs and I need to like focus, zone in on the computer for an hour, I hop in the ice bath for 5 minutes. I try to avoid caffeine as well because caffeine is like a whole other stimulant. I just let the cold be my stimulant. And it changes the way I work and focus. We got fat loss. So it helps specifically with brown adipose tissue. You might have heard of brown fat before, also known as BAT. This one I'm a bit skeptical of because if someone's like, this is the fat loss cure, I'm gonna be like, what about like a calorie deficit and exercising? So there's no real studies on this, but everyone agrees that if you're eating well and eating calorie deficit, exercising, moving every day, it can't hurt you. Oh, yeah. So it may be a slight benefit to cold exposure, similar to how like capsicum or other like spicy things can help boost your metabolism by a bit, but it's a very, very small element. We said immunity, we said cold exposure. Oh, the most important one, recovery. So the whole rice protocol, like ice your injuries, that's like out of the equation. Just so people should know, icing and rice is no longer the protocol that you want to use when recovering an injury, specifically with cold exposure. So the study they did was interesting. When you work out, you're actually damaging your body. You're not improving your body. When you recover, when you sleep, and when you eat, then you're doing the repair. So all this inflammation is building up in the muscles and the micro tears, and the cold blunts the process. Just pauses, kind of like a dead body. You pop the dead body in and it stays cold, right? That's what this freezer is really for hiding our dead bodies. So are you okay?
Yes.
Good. You take the muscle building process and you just kind of blunt the process and like stop the inflammation, which is not a good thing. You want the inflammation to build up so you can recover. So here's where it gets iffy, because on the one hand, I want all the benefits of cold exposure and the mental, which we'll speak about in a second, but I also don't want it to affect my workout. So for someone who's a strength athlete specifically, keep your cold as far away from your workout as possible. The Wim Hofers say like an hour to 3 hours. I say no way. 8 hours a day. Like, I do ice bath on every one of my recovery days because my movement, I move every day, is not strenuous enough to really invoke serious muscle damage. On my heavy lifting days, if I'm sprinting, I keep the cold as far away as possible. And I've noticed I've been doing cold for over a year already. Times when I time the icing right, I'm recovering faster. Times when I time the icing wrong, I'm not making as much gains as I normally could. For endurance athlete, it's flipped. Cold exposure has been known to improve your mitochondria. I learned it in Hebrew, but your mitochondriac cells, and the more of these you have, the more like aerobic capacity you have within your muscles. So, endurance athletes should be cold exposing every day, and you can ice after an endurance run, no problem. It's the muscle damage and the strength training specifically that invokes it. So, cold exposure, but keep it away from your workout. The last one I want to speak about is just mental fortitude because we're both very mentally strong. Because like we're in an ice bath for over an hour, it's very hard to train mental capacity. I've been in the army and I see like you're mentally strong and sprint and no. Sprinting is a physical attribute. Eytan's gonna shiver, so we're gonna hop out.
No,
soon.
it's all good.
You're good. You're chilling.
Yeah.
Sprinting and pushing yourself to your limits, in my opinion, is a physical attribute. The stronger you are, the faster you are, the more endurance you have, the better you'll be able to endure in this stimulation or whatever the hell you're doing. Your mental capacity is the ability to maximize whatever schools you do have. But if someone is weak, I don't like the word weak, but if someone's not strong, they're going to have trouble running up that hill. It's that simple. Mental work is not sprinting up the hill. It's exposing yourself to things that are out of your comfort zone. And I found that cold exposure is one of the best mental workouts you can do because it's just something that, like, you tell yourself, why the hell am I doing this? To, like, overcome that barrier. When you can sit in that cold every day, you can also do anything, really.
Wouldn't you say that sprinting up the hill could be, like, someone cannot sprint up the hill, you have them sprint up the hill, maybe they won't achieve it, like, immediately. But that would be taking them out of their comfort zone, and so in and of itself, that is also a mental challenge.
Yes.
Physical challenge and mental challenge are tied
yes,
together.
I agree. When I try to say about specifically like physical versus mental is that your mental capacity is your ability, this is my opinion, to maximize your physical capacity. So if someone's strong, he's just like lazy. He's like, no, I don't want to sprint up the hill, or I don't want to sprint the hill 30 times, like any army stimulation or CrossFit like style workouts. So his mental capacity is his ability to take his current capacity and push his physical capacity to his limits. But if he's physically incapable, he's not going to finish the marathon. If he can't run a marathon, he can't run a marathon. Can he drag himself along until the end? Yes, because he's mentally strong. But the way to mentally train is not just mentally push yourself. The way to train is progressive overload and slowly get stronger and endure over time. I think that a bonus you can do is by going in the bath, you're able to tap more into your mental neurons and say like, hey, you just sat in the cold at 3 degrees for 10 minutes. Of course you can push my limits. Of course I can go up that hill. That's kind of what I'm dreaming.
Yeah.
Before we end off and before we get hyperthermia, we're gonna have some hot tea after this. Which I'm always down for. Anything else you'd like to share? Where we can find your work? Anything else you'd like to add to our followers?
No, for now, no. And there's nothing really that I think I'd like anyone to say, to see, but if anyone's looking for a cinematographer and a director, you can speak with Sean, or you can find me, through Sean, whatever. Speak to Sean.
Can you give us your YouTube, Instagram, just so we can find you and contact you? Because like people are watching us from England, from Australia,
Instagram
from around the
is
world.
Eytan Litt.
Because he's lit.
I
always want to do that joke.
There's a band Retroact. You're going to be able to find their music video, which I did for them. If you search up Fell, Eytan Litt, you can see a short film that I had done. There's different things you can find, but ultimately, I'm quite at the beginning of my journey. Only got out of the army.
Guys, give it a few years.
But
you're gonna see this podcast. You're like, what? Eytan Nolan at the beginning of his journey? What are you talking about, bro? This guy directed the next Star Wars. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Star Wars. Next Star Wars.
I don't know.
TV
well,
shows.
Hopefully, who knows?
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, but fun fact before we end, Disney just released a Japanese anime Star Wars TV show. Where instead of having lightsabers, they have like katanas, like samurai katanas, but they're lightsabers. Disney gave the creative liberty to the anime studio, 6 of them, to just do whatever the hell they wanted, non-canon. Like they can make up characters, and it's awesome. It's called Visions. Check it out. Disney hook up that 10%, 10% affiliate Disney Plus.
Plugged
in Disney because Disney's awesome. All right, dude.
Yeah.
Feel good?
I feel great.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast, and I'll see you all next time.
Over the years of being a strength and conditioning coach, many runners have come to me with the same issue. They're either living in pain, plateauing in their running, or struggling with strength training. This is where our Strength Training for Runners program kicks in. We have 2 strength days, 1 speed day, 1 active recovery day, 1 foot and ankle day, 1 play day, and 1 education day. This beautiful blend will make you the best runner you will ever be. You can find details in the link below.